Good morning, afternoon, or evening, cats and dogs. Our video today is going to focus on the lesson 3.4 and 3.5 guided notes on multiplying and dividing integers. So again, make sure you have these guided notes out and in front of you, and you're copying down the guided notes as you're watching this video. We've already worked with adding and subtracting integers, which are more difficult than multiplying and dividing integers. I think you'll find this lesson, since we combine both concepts together, to be a little bit simpler than adding and subtracting integers. So let's start by filling in the top of the page where we have a few boxes regarding what sign our answer is going to have. So you're going to see 4 boxes here. The top 2 are on multiplying integers. The bottom 2 are on dividing integers. If we are multiplying integers with different signs, meaning one number is positive, one number is negative, and this is just for 2 integers, we know that the product of 2 integers with different signs will be negative. So if you have negative 3 times 5, and I'm representing multiplication using parentheses here, your solution will be negative 15. All you have to do is multiply 3 by 5, and since you know that the signs are different and your answer will be negative, you put a negative sign on your answer. Same with the second example. This is 10 times negative 8. I do 10 times 8, which is 80. Since the signs are different, I know that my solution is going to be negative. But if I multiply integers that have the same sign, meaning they're both positive or they're both negative, I know that that product is going to be positive. So we obviously know that if we take 5 times 8, that's 40. If we take 3 times 2, that's 6. We know if we multiply 2 positive numbers, we get a positive number. What you might not realize, though, is that when we multiply 2 negatives, we also get a positive answer. So if we take negative 3 times negative 5, that's going to get us 15. I just multiply 3 times 5, and I know that since I multiplied 2 negatives, my answer is positive. There's a sign in my classroom along the windows that reminds us of this rule. This is something that often confuses students because, if you remember, if we add 2 negatives, we definitely get a negative. Because again, we can think of that football situation. If you lose 3 yards on one play and then lose 5 yards on another play, that's a loss of 8 yards, or negative 8. But that's an addition situation. If we're multiplying 2 negatives, our answer will be positive. So in example 2, when I have negative 4 times negative 9, I multiply 4 by 9 to get 36. And since I multiplied 2 negative numbers, I know my answer is going to be positive. Now the rules for dividing integers are exactly the same. So what this means for us is we only have to really memorize one set of rules for both multiplying and dividing integers. So like multiplying integers up here, if I divide integers with different signs, my answer will be negative. So negative 15 divided by 5, I take 15 divided by 5, which is 3, and I know my solution is going to be negative since the signs were different. In number 2, I have 80 divided by negative 8. 80 divided by 8 is 10, and since the signs are different, I know my solution will be negative. When I divide integers that have the same sign, just like for multiplying integers with the same sign, my answer is going to be positive. Ignore that, I must have copied the wrong thing in. The quotient of 2 integers with the same sign will be positive. So if I take negative 15 and divide it by negative 5, I do 15 divided by 5 to get 3. Since the signs are the same, my answer will be positive. If I have negative 36 divided by negative 9, my answer is going to be positive 4, since 36 divided by 9 is 4. And again, anytime the signs are the same, my answer is going to be positive. Anytime the signs are different, my answer is going to be negative. And again, that's for multiplying or dividing 2 integers, 2 positive or negative numbers. So we've got to memorize these rules. We can also model multiplication of integers on the number line. For example, if I have the problem 3 times negative 40, I could represent it like this, like going to the left 40 3 different times to end up at negative 120. It's the same as adding negative 40 3 times. So we can represent that using addition, we can represent it using multiplication, we can represent it on a number line as well. It gets a little bit more difficult when we're multiplying 2 negatives, but we can still look at representing the problem in this way. We won't spend a lot of time working with number lines like we did with adding and subtracting. All I want you to do is memorize these rules. Again, I'll remind you, when you multiply or divide integers with different signs, the answer will be negative. When you multiply or divide integers with the same sign, your answer will be positive. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at problems 1 through 15. It actually goes on to the next page up to question number 20. What I would suggest you do is, as we're working through these problems, if you're ready to start working through some of these questions on your own, you can do that. But please make sure you go back and check your solutions by listening to the video and listening to the explanations. So number 1, I have -8 times -6. I know that the product of two negative numbers, or having the same sign, will be positive. So I take 8 times 6, and that's going to get me 48. And number 2, we're going sort of the opposite direction. We're dividing. -48 divided by -6. Signs are the same. I know my answer will be positive, and I know that 48 divided by 6 is 8. We really have to know our multiplication and division rules here. Other than that, it's just figuring out what sign goes on our solution, and we're done. Again, much easier than all those rules for adding and subtracting integers. Number 3, I have -10 times 4. Take 10 times 4, it's 40. Since the signs are different, my answer is going to be negative. My final solution is -40. Number 4, -20 times 7. 20 times 7 is going to get us 140. 2 times 7 is 14. Tack on a 0. Signs are different, so my answer is going to be negative. Number 5, -200 divided by 5. I've got to know how many times 5 goes into 200. You can also think about taking 20 divided by 5, which is 4, tack on a 0. This one's going to be 40. Since the signs are different, my answer is going to be negative. So we'll get -40, just like we did for question number 3. Number 6, we've got 4 times -8. Since the signs are different, I know my answer is going to be negative. 4 times 8 is 32, so my solution will be -32. Now that you're starting to get the idea, again, feel free to pause the video, try the remaining questions, and then listen to the video so that you can check your solutions as well. Number 7, 32 divided by -8 should be -4. Why? 32 divided by 8 is 4. Since the signs are different, my solution is going to be negative. And number 8, 90 divided by 6, we've got -90, -6. I know my answer is going to be positive since the signs are the same. I just have to figure out how many times 6 goes into 90. You might need to do long division, but I know that 15 times 2 is going to get me 30. And if I have 3 30s, it's going to get me to 90. So I know that 90 divided by 6 is going to be 15. But again, if you need to do long division, which we're actually going to see down here for question number 19, you can certainly do long division to find your solution. Number 9, -18 times 2. Signs are different, so my solution is going to be negative. 18 times 2 is 36. My final solution will be -36. Again, I'm going through these quickly. In class, we would go through them pretty fast. I know you're watching a video here, which makes things a little bit different, but that's why I would suggest maybe trying some of these on your own. Number 10, I'm representing division with a slash for division instead of using the division symbol, but it still represents division. So I've got -100 divided by 4. I know 4 goes into 100 25 times. Since the signs are different, I know my solution is going to be -25. Number 11, -6 times -9. The signs are the same, so my answer will be positive. So we do 6 times 9 to get a solution of positive 54. Number 12, going the opposite direction. You're going to see a lot of repeats here. -54 divided by -9. 9 goes into 54 6 times, so my solution will be 6. Number 13, we saw something similar up here with number 8. If you're not sure what 15 times 6 is, again, 15 times 2 is 30, and since I have 6 of them, I need 2 other pairs. So I'm going to have 30 plus 30 plus 30, which is 90. And again, a negative times a negative is going to get us a positive solution. In number 14, I have -18 divided by 2. You don't need the parentheses around the 2 here. We do need them sometimes when we're representing multiplication, like in number 13, but there are parentheses here. They don't really mean anything. 18 divided by 2 is 9. Since the signs are different, my solution will be negative. Number 15, we have negative 6 times negative 14. We've got to practice multiplying 14 by 6, and if you need to show work off to the side, do that. You're going to end up getting 84 for your solution. 4 times 6 is 24. Leave the 4, carry the 2. 6 times 1 is 6, plus 2 is 8. And again, negative times a negative is going to get us a positive. Number 16, negative 121 divided by negative 11. 121 divided by 11 is going to get us 11. Again, we really need to know those multiplication facts and division facts. Since it's a negative divided by a negative, it is positive. All right, last few. Negative 150 divided by negative 25. For this problem, I have to recognize that 25 goes into 150 6 times, and a negative divided by a negative is going to get us a positive. Number 18, we have negative 11 times negative 11. Again, knowing those multiplication facts. 11 times 11 is 121. Negative times a negative is going to get us a positive solution. For number 19, this one we might have to show long division because that's a little bit harder to keep track of mentally. So I'm going to do 2,250 divided by 6. I'm not going to put any negative sign until my final answer, which will be down here, but I'm going to do some long division. 6 goes into 2 0 times. I do like to put that 0 there. Some of your teachers might have had you putting an X there. Something to hold that place is a good idea. 6 goes into 22 3 times without going over, and that's going to get us 18. So let me move that 3 in there. I'm going to subtract 18 from 22. So let me put my negative sign on there. Bear with me as I get this set up and organized for you, but I want to make sure we worked through this work together here. 22 minus 18 is going to get us 4. Bring down that 5 from up above. So I'm bringing down this 5 right here. 6 goes into 45 7 times. That's going to get us 42 without going over. So let me put my 42 down here. And we're going to subtract 42 from 45. Again, just organizing everything. Let me slide this up so it's a little easier for you to see. 45 minus 42 is going to get us 3. And then, of course, we're going to bring down that 0. And these will all work out evenly. I'm not trying to give you any really difficult math to do here, although these numbers are a little bit bigger. 6 goes into 30 exactly 5 times. And just to show the last little bit, 6 times 5 is 30. So when we subtract, we're going to get a remainder of 0. And again, all of these are going to work out evenly. I'm not trying to make anything extremely difficult, but I do want you to have some more challenging problems with still getting even answers or ones that you're familiar with, and of course, determining whether your answer is positive or negative. That's the most important part here. So our solution, because we're dividing numbers with different signs, should be negative. So this will be negative 375. In number 20, we are showing division using a fraction bar, which again, I know we don't love fractions, but we do 160 divided by 4. That's going to get us 40. Since the signs are different, our answer will be negative. All right, let's talk a little bit about multiplying integers that have multiplying 3 or more integers. So the summary here says, what is the sign of your answer if you multiply an odd number of negatives? And this is not in your guided notes. I want us to take a look at this problem. So I have 3 negative numbers in this problem. And I'm going to tell you that the sign of your answer is going to be dependent on how many negative numbers you have. So let's work through this. I know that negative 5 times negative 6 is going to get me positive 30, since 2 negatives make a positive. So now I've got 30 multiplied by negative 3. Now the signs are different, so I know my answer is going to be negative. 30 times 3 is 90. So the solution to this question, which has 3 negatives, is going to be negative. Let's look at this. What if we have an even number of negatives? So now I have 4 negative numbers being multiplied. Let's work through this. So I'm going to multiply 2 at a time. We've got negative 3 by negative 2, which I know is positive, since 2 negatives make a positive. In fact, it's positive 6. Let's multiply -4 by -5, which maybe you recognize should be +20, since a negative times a negative is a positive. We've got to multiply these together, so I'm going to do off to the side here, +6 by +20. That should be +120. So what do I notice? Well, I notice that when I have three negative numbers being multiplied, that's an odd number, I get a negative solution. If I multiply four negatives, that's an even number of negatives, my answer is going to be positive. So let's summarize this. This part is in your notes. If we're multiplying more than two integers, and I'm not going to have you divide 3 or 4 or 5 numbers in a row, but we might be multiplying 3 or 4 or 5 numbers in a row. What we need to look at is the number of negatives in the problem. So the sign of your answer will always be dependent on the number of negatives. The product of an odd number of negative integers will give a negative result. So if you look through your string of numbers that you're multiplying and you have 1, 3, 5, 7 negative numbers, then your answer is going to be negative. If you have an even number of negative integers like 2, 4, 6, 8, your answer is going to be positive. And this makes sense because if I'm multiplying two integers and one of them is negative, my answer is going to be negative. One negative is an odd number. If I'm multiplying two integers and they're both negative, that means I have two negatives, that's an even number, I know that my answer is going to be positive. So I want to talk a little bit about exponents as well, so we're going to mix these into some of our questions. It says this is why -2 in parentheses to the third power with an odd exponent is -8. It's a negative answer. You have an odd number of negatives. If you have something like -2 in parentheses to the fourth power with an even exponent, your answer is going to be 16, which is a positive answer. So this works if your base of your power is negative and the exponent is odd, your answer is going to be negative. If your exponent is even, your answer is going to be positive. So let's take a look at numbers 21 through 24. I do suggest to determine whether your answer is going to be positive or negative first, and then just multiply the positive values. So I multiply the absolute value of each number. For example, in number 21, I've got three numbers. Two of them are negative, -6, -2. That's an even number of negatives, which tells me my answer is going to be positive. So I'm going to keep that in mind. So I've got 6 by 3 by 2. I know that 3 times 2 is 6, and 6 times 6 is 36. Remember, you're able to multiply in any order you want. So you can do 6 times 3 and get 18, and then take 18 times 2. Personally, I think it's easier to do 3 by 2 and multiply two single-digit numbers, but it's your choice. Most important thing here is figuring out, is your answer positive or negative? Number 22, I have three numbers, two are negative. That's an even number of negatives, which means my answer is going to be positive. So what I would suggest is do 2 times 12 first. That's 24. 24 times 10 is really easy for us to do because we just add a 0 to 24. This answer will be 240. Let's take a look at number 23. I have 1, 2, 3 negatives out of 4 numbers. That's an odd number of negatives, 3 negatives. So I know my answer is going to be negative. So I'm going to put that here. I'm going to type it in so I don't forget. Now, I have 4 times 7, which is 28, times 1 is also 28. And then, of course, I have 28 times 2. That's a little bit more challenging. That's going to be 56. So my final solution will be -56. Another option you have is to take 4 times 2 to get 8. 8 times 7, which might be something you do remember, is 56. Let's look at number 24. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 numbers, but only 3 of them are negatives, which means since I have an odd number of negative numbers, my answer is negative. So let's see the easiest way to do this. So what I would do is I would do 2 times 5 to get 10, 8 times 8 to get 64, and then do 64 times 10, which is going to get us 640. So my final solution here would be -640. Now you could do 8 times 2, which is 16, take 16 times 5, and then have to multiply that by 8. But again, I think it's probably a little easier to do 8 times 8, 64. 2 times 5 is 10. Anytime you can make 10 with your product, it's going to make your math or your work a little bit easier. Work smarter, not harder. If you can make it easier for yourself, do that. If you know lots of tricks for math, it does make using mental math a lot easier. All right, so the next few questions we have are evaluating questions. You've probably noticed we have mixed in some evaluating questions with these problems in the last few lessons, so with adding integers, subtracting integers, and so forth. So in number 25, we've got 4ab. I need to replace a with -2, b with 3 based on my directions. So you're going to see that I wrote 4 times -2 times 3. I put the multiplication signs between them. You can also use parentheses. I've got one negative number, which tells me that my solution is going to be negative since it's an odd number of negatives. 4 by 2 is 8. 8 by 3 is 24. So my final solution here will be -24. Again, you look at the number of negatives. Now, it doesn't mean you have to have more negatives, because some students say, well, I have 2 positive numbers. Why isn't my answer positive? It doesn't matter how many positive numbers you have. It only matters if the number of negative numbers you have is odd or even. Let's take a look at number 26. -2bc. Replace b with 3, replace c with -4. So we have -2 times 3 times -4. We have two negative numbers. That's an even number, which means my answer will be positive. Take 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. So this answer is also 24, but it happens to be positive 24. Number 27, 9ac. Replace a with -2, replace c with -4. So we have 9 times -2 times -4. Two negative numbers is even, which means my answer will be positive. I would do 2 times 4 to get 8, and then 8 times 9 is going to get us 72. You can also do 9 times 2 to get 18 and take 18 times 4, but that's one that I don't necessarily know off the top of my head. Number 28, c to the second power. We've got to mix in some exponents too, all over a. So first thing we want to do is substitute those numbers in. C is -4, and I put it in parentheses because if you go back to the very beginning of Unit 1, we said that if your base is negative, you should put it in parentheses. Replace a with -2. -4 to the second power is -4 times -4. -4 times -4, if you remember those rules, is 16. So I have 16 over -2, which means 16 divided by -2. That will be -8 for our solution. That's a tough one. That's a pretty high level question, but it's one that if you know your rules and are familiar with them and take it step by step, you should be okay. Where students tend to get into some problems is they try to skip steps or combine steps into one. And you really need to make sure that for the first time seeing this, you're doing each step separately. Number 29, a to the third power over ac. And I know up here is where we have what those values are. But replace a with -2. Put it in parentheses since the base is negative. On the bottom we have ac, so that's -2 times -4. -2 to the third power I wrote as -2 times -2 times -2. On the bottom I did -2 times -4 to get +8. Remember, two negatives make a positive. 2 by 2 by 2 is also 8, but it's negative since you have an odd number of negatives, since you have 3 negatives. So we have -8 over +8. Divide those. 8 by 8 is 1. We have 1 negative. Our answer is -1. All right, last of these questions. Then we do have some word problems. I know this is a lengthy video. It's because we really want to get through this entire lesson all at once, since it all goes together. So number 30, -b c to the second power. Replace b with 3, but this negative again comes from the problem itself, times c to the second power. C is -4. Since the base is negative, I put it in parentheses. So I wrote -3 times 16, because if you remember, -4 times -4 we saw up here is +16. 16 by 3 is 48. It's negative though since the signs are different. Oops, I forgot to reveal that. So our solution here will be negative 48. Now these are pretty tough. If you can handle these questions, you're doing pretty well. You will see some questions on your Unit 1 review worksheet as well that will have you multiplying and dividing with negatives. All right, so right now I want you to pause the video. I've got 6 questions for you to try on your own. Go ahead and take a moment and try these problems on your own. All right. Hopefully these questions went pretty well. 8 times negative 12. For this problem, since the signs are different, my solution is going to be negative. 12 times 8 is 96, so my solution should be negative 96. Number 2, the signs are the same, so my answer is positive. 15 times 2 is 30, which means 15 times 4 is going to get us 60. And number 3, you may want to consider this as negative 6 times negative 6, which is negative 6 squared. 2 negatives make a positive, so this solution should be positive 36. Remember, we said if the exponent is even and your base is negative, your answer will be positive. The fourth one down, these do come from your textbook, which is why it looks a lot like the inside of your textbook. Number 4, negative 5 to the third power. Just a reminder that that is negative 5 times negative 5 times negative 5. I know that 3 negatives is going to make a negative since it's an odd number of negatives. 5 times 5 is 25. 25 times 5 is going to get us 125. So my final solution is negative 125. Number 5, I have 3 negative numbers. That's an odd number, which tells me my answer is going to be negative. I know that 4 times 2 is 8, and 8 times 8 is 64. So my final solution is negative 64. And number 6, I have negative 2 negatives, which means my answer is going to be positive. I do 3 times 2 is 6, 6 times 1 is 6. Final solution is 6. All right. I also have 8 questions here for you to try. Pause the video and give these 8 questions a try. How do we do? These are a little bit easier since we're only doing 2 numbers. Number 1, since the signs are different, I know my answer is going to be negative. 50 divided by 5 is 10. My solution will be negative 10. Number 2, signs are different, which means my answer is going to be negative. 18 divided by 9 is 2, so my solution is negative 2. And number 3, the signs are the same, so my answer will be positive. 15 divided by 3 is 5. My solution is 5. Number 4, signs are the same. My answer is going to be positive. Do 100 divided by 10. That will be 10. Let's slide this up for you. Signs are different in number 5, and they're shown as a fraction, but again, that fraction bar just represents division. 22 divided by 2 is 11, and since the signs were different, it's negative. Number 6, ooh, this is a tough one. So we've got to know what 84 divided by 12 is. If you know that 12 times 7 gets you 84, that will help you. Since the signs are different, my answer is negative. This solution will be negative 7. And number 7, signs are different again, so my answer is negative. 13 goes into 26 twice, so final solution is negative 2. And finally, signs are the same in number 8, so my answer is going to be positive. 21 divided by 7 is 3. All right, so we're almost done. We do have some word problems, but they are fairly easy, so it won't take us too long to get through them. I appreciate you bearing with me through this long video, but it is the only video for this section of your virtual learning. Number 31, the Good Food and More grocery store loses an average of $210 a day due to breakage, shoplifting, and food expiration. A. Write a multiplication sentence to represent the amount of money the store loses on average per 7-day week. Well, we know that each day they lose an average of $210. So I'm going to multiply 210 by 7 since it's $210 per day and we're looking at a 7-day week. Now, I'm going to represent 210 as a negative because the store is losing that amount. So I'm going to write negative 210 times 7. So let's do 210 times 7 because for part B it says how much money does the store lose on average per 7-day week. 210 times 7, what I did was 200 times 7, which is 1,400, and then 10 times 7, which is going to get us 70, and I combine them together, the 1,400 and the 70, to get $1,470. I wrote it as a negative because, again, this represents a loss. That's important for a business to know. Does this represent a gain of money or a loss of money? It does say to explain the meaning of your answer in a complete sentence. So, what does this mean for the store? Well, we can say that the store will lose an average of $1,470 per week. All right, let's take a look at number 32. Again, I'm going through this pretty quickly, so if you feel the need to pause the video, please do so you can write this down. Number 32, an airplane is approaching its destination and has begun its final descent into the airport. The plane descends at a rate of 300 feet per minute. I'm going to highlight that because that's important for us. That's its speed that it descends. If you've been on a plane, you might have been able to watch some of the newer planes um, will have a TV on the back where you can watch movies, but you can also see your elevation and you can see a map of where you're traveling. So it's always kind of fun to look at that. Letter A, write a multiplication sentence to represent the change in altitude of the plane after 4 minutes. So since we're descending 300 feet per minute, that's a negative 300. We're going to multiply that by 4 for the 4 minutes. It does make sense to it doesn't really matter which one you make negative, but since the descent is the 300, that's the number I'm going to make negative. Part B, what is the change in altitude of the plane after 4 minutes? Explain the meaning of your answer in a complete sentence. So let's find the solution. 3 by 4 is 12, tack on the 2 zeros, and we get negative 1,200 feet. Watch your label. Make sure you don't put negative 1,200 feet per second because you're not falling 1,200 feet per second. You're falling 1,200 feet in 4 minutes. Don't write negative 1,200 feet per minute either. Just negative 1,200 feet, not negative 1,200 minutes, not negative 1,200 feet per minute, or any of those other labels that don't make sense for this problem. I say that only because I've seen students put the incorrect labels on their solution in the past. So let's explain our meaning. What this means for this problem is that the plane will descend 1,200 feet over 4 minutes. Your wording doesn't have to be exactly the same, but it basically needs to answer this question in the form of a sentence. All right, last question. I'm sure you're tired of hearing me talk, and I'm tired of hearing me talk. So let's talk about the last question, number 33. And I do want to point out this is very, 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 very similar to the question you're going to see on your unit test on this topic. A frog dives underwater at a speed of 18 inches per second. So that's its speed. Since it's going underwater, that's going to represent a negative value. The frog does this for 3 seconds. Write an expression to represent the situation. Now, we could represent this in an addition sentence, but we're going to represent it using multiplication since that's what we're covering in this lesson. So negative 18 for the frog diving underwater or descending, we're going to multiply that by 3. Part B, let's evaluate this expression. 18 by 3 is 54. It's negative since one of your numbers is negative. So my solution is negative 54 inches. What does this mean for the frog? Well, it means that the frog will dive 54 inches underwater in 3 seconds, since it's diving 18 inches per second over 3 seconds. Now, I know this is a lot of information in nearly a 35-minute video. We will, of course, review these things either during a live session or during class or through the review worksheet, but it is one of the easier lessons in the unit. Your test is coming up very soon, so that review worksheet that you will have received by the time you're watching this video, I hope, will help to prepare you for that unit test. And of course, we'll spend some time in class preparing you for the test. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to complete all of your virtual assignments. Have a great day.